Hey, what is up, everybody? Thank you so much for checking out my video today. I just wanted to briefly go over my thoughts on the Battlefield 6 beta now that it has come to an end. I want to say that this game, honestly, was more than just a nostalgic echo. It's truly a declaration of Battlefield being back from EA. I'm really impressed with this demo and playtest overall. And there's a couple things I wanted to go over to kind of explain, I guess, like the scope of this particular playtest and just really like how big it was and kind of what my thoughts were on that. So, really, this ran through 2 weekends. It was originally in, I believe, August 9th to the 11th was the first weekend, and then the second one was August 14th to the 18th. This was a really good idea. What that did essentially was give people who had maybe like plans on one weekend or was on a vacation during one of the weeks time to be able to come back and actually engage with the game and some of the new things that it brought to the table, which I thought was really cool. One thing also to point out, this beta was actually the largest in the entire franchise's history. A couple of really cool metrics that were posted by Games Radar. There were about 5 billion kills, 92 million hours were played, 337 million shotgun kills, 5 million road kills, and 7 million defibrillator kills. I don't know about you, but I was killed by a defibrillator like 2 or 3 times during this beta, and every single time I flipped. I was just like, there's no way. There's no way. But then eventually I ended up pulling out the medic or the support class, and I ended up getting a couple defib kills myself, and that kind of balanced out the universe for me there. One thing to kind of break down as well, I'm a little surprised by these metrics. These were also posted by Games Radar. The Assault class was actually the most played class at 32%. Right behind that was Support at 26%, and in a very close third at 23%, the Engineer class, leaving the Recon at 19%, which honestly, I'm thoroughly surprised by. The Recon class, in my opinion, was the one class that the unique ability really tailored to players that wanted to snipe, and there were quite a lot of snipers, especially on that mountain map. So I thought that there was definitely a lot more than just 19% of the community playing Recon, but I guess people were really just pulling out the sniper and putting it on other classes is what that kind of tells me. Another really big highlight I wanted to point out for this, the destruction is back. If you played 2042, you might have realized the maps are really huge, really flat, and there's not really that much destruction. That has been completely tossed out of the window. We're back to maps very similar to Battlefield 4 and 3, although you could argue maybe slightly different in kind of the dynamics and angles. However, the main point is that the destruction is definitely very close to those games. The other thing that was really big, even though the game was really detailed, had a lot of destruction, had very thorough map design, the game was incredibly optimized. There were a lot of people that were playing this game on really old, or I don't want to say like outdated hardware, but we'll just say like hardware that were below the minimum specifications. And they were running the game 60 plus frames per second, no issues whatsoever. And I think one of the contributing factors to that was them not actually having ray tracing at launch. So that probably allowed for a little bit more focus on kind of performance throughout different systems. But I think overall it was really good. And for it being a beta, I was thoroughly impressed with how it's performing. The other thing that kind of, I guess, took me a little bit off guard, though, was the anti-cheat system, because I personally had Valorant installed, and I had no issues. I was actually playing Valorant and then playing this game, kind of swapping between the two. Almost kind of trying to initiate any issue, and I did not run into anything. Although I had some friends that did. I had another friend who, for whatever reason, he can't get into the BIOS to turn on secure boot or to the particular section. I don't know exactly what's going on there, but there's definitely people online complaining about not being able to turn on secure boot as well. So there's definitely, I guess, a couple tweaks that could be made for the anti-cheat system to not, I guess, harm legitimate players' experiences. But I think they did overall a really good job. I didn't like run into any cheaters or anything, so that was huge. The other thing that was super cool was that there was a lot of community feedback during the open beta, and it feels like EA is genuinely listening to what the community has to say and making steps in the right direction to make everybody happy. The first thing that they mention is around the weapons. They said, "We're making targeted adjustments to deliver a more consistent and rewarding gunplay experience. This includes a general pass on recoil and tap-fire characteristics across all weapons, further emphasizing their unique feel and improving range differentiation. We've also made changes to encourage more controlled tap firing and burst firing, rewarding precision and weapon mastery. Additionally, the M87A1 shotgun now requires more pellets to secure a kill. We are investigating the time to kill and time to death experiences, and we will share an update if definitive changes are made in these areas." This is absolutely huge. This is literally them, quite literally, listening to the direct community feedback in regards to gunplay and things like the shotgun. So looking forward to see how those changes are implemented. Next they discussed was the movement. Movement mechanics have been adjusted to create a more balanced and traditional Battlefield experience. Momentum, especially horizontal speed, carried from a slide into a jump has been reduced. There is now a greater penalty for consecutive jumps, which lowers jump height when jumps are spammed. Firing while jumping or sliding will result in increased inaccuracy. These changes are designed to make sliding and jumping more situational, so they are no longer ideal options for engaging in gunfights, and will contribute to a gunplay pace that rewards skillful movement without becoming too fast or unpredictable. Parachute physics have also been retuned with reduced initial acceleration when opening the parachute for more controlled aerial movement. This was definitely a target towards those that are looking to use the parachute to get out of the map as well. But that's honestly, in my opinion, a W change. I'm not even mad about that. So that's going to be really good. The other thing that's really good is that they're kind of reducing the COD movement when it comes to like the spamming of the slide canceling and jumping around the corners and things like that. So it's definitely going to be a little bit more traditional Battlefield movement, but still fast paced. It's still not going to be slow. After movement was the maps. They said, "We observed some players finding a way to reach rooftops and venture out of bounds. This gameplay is not intended for these maps, and the upcoming ladder for the assault class is also not designed to access these areas. We're actively working on adjustments to prevent unintended access and ensure gameplay stays within the intended boundaries." We also heard strong feedback from players excited by the larger scale maps that Battlefield has to offer. While the open beta featured smaller, more fast-paced maps, larger scale maps are already part of our launch package, delivering action-packed gameplay and memorable, unique moments for every player. As part of the upcoming Battlefield Labs testing, we'll be testing 2 new multiplayer maps, one set in Morocco Valley, and the other a remake of a fan favorite from Battlefield 3, Operation Firestorm. These 2 maps include the full complement of vehicles like Liberation Peak along with a more vast combat space. This is going to be nice. This is huge because, firstly, to the point of the parachutes and everything, they're preventing players getting out of the map, and they're also preemptively addressing the assault class and that new ladder mechanic that's going to be implemented with them. So that's a huge win. I feel like that's a really, really big point for them to make. The other thing that's really, really good is that they're going to have larger scale maps. A lot of people were complaining about the map sizes, saying that they're a little too small, saying that they're just a little bit too clustered for their taste. And I feel like Battlefield definitely will have larger maps. It's kind of necessary for this game to kind of have those larger maps, so we'll definitely be seeing that. The next thing discussed was around modes. I know that this was a topic that was discussed by Enders on his channel. They said right here, "When it comes to Rush, the conversation we observed wasn't just about player count, but also about how maps play and the tactical experience they offer. Rush is a mode with deep roots, originally known as Gold Rush in Bad Company, where matches typically ranged from 12v12 to 16v16 players. Many of you remember this as the golden era of Rush, and it continues to inspire our approach today. We've experimented with larger player counts over the years, such as 64 and even 128 player versions. While these matches created intense, fast-paced moments, they also led to issues: overwhelming defenses, stalled front lines, and too many games ending in the first sector. Rush is especially sensitive to higher player counts due to its tactical and strategic requirements. When a player tries to arm the MCOM while more than 20 opponents are defending, the intended gameplay becomes less tangible. Based on feedback throughout recent titles, we're lowering the default player count for Rush to improve the flow of combat and restore the tactical, methodical experience that defines the mode. For those who enjoy large-scale Rush, Portal will allow you to experiment with different player counts at launch. In contrast, Breakthrough is designed to accommodate higher player counts of up to 64 players, and that's where the mode really shines. Using win-loss data from the open beta, we're continuing to make map-by-map balance adjustments toward our goal of a 50-50 win ratio for both attackers and defenders." I'm definitely a big fan of this, especially them trying to balance out the maps to make them a little bit more fair for attackers and defenders, because on Liberation Peak, there were a lot of issues I felt like with teams getting pinched with the C and E point. If you were the team starting at the top of the mountain, it was really difficult to kind of get past the CEF kind of pinch right there if you were able to at all. And so I think that kind of keeping that in mind when balancing the maps is definitely going to create better experiences overall. The next topic was around their approach to player counts. There was some confusion around the number of players in different games, so we wanted to take a moment to clarify our current direction for how these games get determined. Rather than locking maps and modes to a fixed player count, our philosophy is to adapt to best fit the intended experience. This may vary map by map or evolve over time with player feedback. For example, at launch, some breakthrough layouts will support 48 players, while others will have 64. It's the one of many factors that we adjust to create the right balance and feel for each scenario. In breakthrough, higher player counts work well on open, dynamic maps, while smaller player groups offer a more focused experience on denser maps. Portal gives players the flexibility to try different settings and find what works best for their group and play style. Finding the right balance is an ongoing process as everyone gets familiar with map size, lanes, and combat spaces. For now, we found that 8v8 provides a solid starting point for small-scale, fast-paced modes like Team Deathmatch, Squad Deathmatch, Domination, and King of the Hill. I think to their point, this is going to take a little bit of time as they try to find the right balance as to what's going to be the right player size for a specific layout. And until then, as a community, we just need to do our due diligence and provide that feedback, meaning like YouTubers making videos, commenters leaving comments, Twitter users leaving tweets. This is essentially how we're going to be able to communicate with the development team directly. Lastly, they discussed the playlist options. A limited variety of playlist options were created for the open beta to both showcase and test the flexibility of the matchmaking system. For more details on our playlist adjustments, see our post about the open beta week 2 playlist options, which will be linked below. Playing with both open and closed weapons will continue to be options in Battlefield 6, and we are looking for ways to keep them easily accessible. We recognize that some players experience difficulty finding games to complete the challenge of capturing sectors in Breakthrough or Rush. It wasn't ideal, and we're actively using your feedback and in-game data to review and improve the matchmaking system, with the goal of providing a smoother experience in the future. I don't know about you guys, I personally did not play with the closed weapons playlists. I only played in the open ones, which is probably what a majority of people did. To kind of recall back to that statistic earlier, there were a lot of snipers, but only 19% of the community were on the recon class. So it sounds like most of the community were preferring the open weapons playlist, but I'm really curious about your guys' thoughts. So if you don't mind sharing in the comments what you guys preferred between the open and closed, I definitely would love to hear about that. That's going to basically call it for today's video. Go ahead and enjoy a couple more minutes here of some gameplay. But for right now, if you want to catch me, I'll be live on Twitch. I'm going to be streaming there a little bit more often, and I plan on uploading a little bit more here on YouTube as well. I have a lot of footage for Battlefield 6 that I'm looking to get out before the game actually drops. So go ahead and like and subscribe if you are looking to see some of that as well. Thank you guys so much for checking out the video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.
What in the?
Oh no!
We've got the enemy out of all positions.
Oh, he's on the point already. Okay.
We need to rally defense on the marked objective.
Thank you. I owe you one.
32 and 7.